We only booked 3 nights at Lassen because honestly, we didn't expect it to be anything special. And after an emergency vet visit with Max, we weren't thinking about much beyond keeping an eye on him and staying close to camp. We were still rattled. But that decision, that's what set up the biggest surprise of this entire trip and nearly cost us the hike this park is famous for. But before we get to that part, we need to back up to the moment we rolled into Lassen. We had only booked 3 nights here because we didn't expect Lassen to be a big destination. And Max wasn't himself yet, so exploring the park wasn't our first priority. Keeping an eye on him was. This stop felt different right from the beginning. We stayed close, rode our bikes through the campground loops, and just let Max rest. By the next morning, Max was doing just a tiny bit better, enough that we felt okay leaving him for short stretches. So we started with something easy, a paddle on Manzanita Lake, just steps from our campsite. This paddle was calm and peaceful, a totally different vibe than our Colorado River kayak trip at Lee's Ferry. If you saw that video, you know that one turned into an adventure of its own. This was the first moment on this trip when we finally felt ourselves relax, which turned out to be a little misleading. Because while we were staying close to camp and keeping such a close eye on Max, we totally missed what was happening up on the mountain. The next morning was our one big hiking day, the hike we came here for, and we headed out completely unaware that the weather had taken a turn. And this is where things start to go sideways. The higher we drove, the lower the clouds dropped. Temperatures fell, snow patches started appearing along the road in late July. Before we tackled the big hike, we stopped at Sulphur Works. Well, we decided to get a nice early start so that we were not in all the crowds. And here we are this morning at the Sulphur Works Ridge Lakes section in Lassen Volcanic National Park. A little cloudy today.
A little stinky.
A little stinky. Right now, I wish that we had smell-o-vision because you can't experience this beauty without also having that contrast of the horrible, stinky, rotting smell. Heat generated from the magma warms groundwater to a boil. The water bubbles and steams upward through the cracks. What Austin Powers movie was it when there was the scene with the magma?
Liquid hot magma.
So do you think that if you walk by all of this stinky, rotten egg smell long enough, it's gonna stick to our clothes? No. Oh, okay. We finally reached the Bumpass parking lot and it was completely empty. And that's when we saw the signs. The trail was closed due to snow. We had one shot at this hike and it looked like we missed it. But then we got a blessing. We passed a crew unloading snow clearing equipment. We stopped and we asked them what was going on and they told us something we didn't expect. The trail wasn't opening anytime soon, but we could reach Bumpass from a backdoor route if we parked at Kings Creek picnic area. Longer, harder, more remote, but absolutely worth trying. If you found out the main trail was closed, would you try to go the longer backdoor route or would you save it for another trip? I'd love to hear what you do. Parts of this backdoor trail were steep, but nothing like the Mist Falls hike we did in Kings Canyon. If you watched that one, you know those climbs were no joke. This hike ended up being one of the biggest surprises of our entire summer. Wildflowers exploding along the trail, burned areas showing new green life, streams running through massive rock fields, and a close-up look at cold boiling lake. But the clouds kept building. We were racing weather again. And then we reached it, a completely different vantage point than the main trail, with hardly anyone else around. Here we are, and we would never get this view unless we were hiking the trail from the back side. So this is absolutely phenomenal, and it's starting to rain, so hopefully we'll get down there, see this, turn around, go back, and not get too soaked. Check that out. That is unbelievable. And no, this trail didn't have any drop-offs like Morrow Rock. After doing that one, I'm pretty sure nothing in Lassen was gonna scare me. We didn't rush it. Even with the raindrops starting to fall, it was too magnificent to hurry.
I'd say it was worth a 5-mile hike, and I'm just hoping that we're not drenched, soaking wet with rain by the time we get back to the truck. But it was totally worth it getting here.
We took in every sight and smell until the light rain turned into tiny snow flurries. By the time we made it back to the truck, the weather cleared again. We grabbed a picnic table, had lunch, and explored the meadow. A perfect, quiet moment after the chaos. On our way back toward camp, we made a few more stops.
I'm not sure how often the wildflowers are in bloom, but we are here in mid-July, and it is absolutely stunning.
First was a meadow, filled with wildflowers and a little stream running beneath the impressive face of Redding Peak. We tried to stop at the Kings Creek trailhead too, but it was packed. Cars everywhere, zero parking. We had to skip that one. We also took a quick drive through Summit Lake South and Summit Lake North just to check out the campgrounds. Beautiful spots, but again, it wasn't the right day to wander. We pulled over at the Summit Lake trailheads thinking we'd squeeze in one more short hike, but the burn scar there was massive. Honestly, it was so stark and open that we decided to skip it entirely. We did make one last stop at the devastated area. It's a short, self-guided walk, but it's fascinating, especially when you see hot rock sitting right there and realize how explosive Lassen's past really was.
Wow. We are here 3 miles from the peak of the avalanche.
And the peak is up there.
Rocks and boulders resting here on the hillside were carried from Lassen Peak 3 miles away.
Thankfully, we had 2 blue sky days before leaving. We hiked around Manzanita Lake, stamped the passport book, explored every campground loop by bike, and soaked in the beauty we almost overlooked. And if you're thinking about camping here, we stayed at Manzanita Lake Campground in Site B35. And this was a dream compared to squeezing into the site that we stayed at in Azalea Campground back in Kings Canyon. If you saw that episode, you remember that struggle. And even though our site had a couple of quirks, like the picnic table and the fire ring were on the wrong side of the rig, so we did a lot of laps back and forth. One thing to know, the big bear-proof trash cans were right next to our site. And every time someone opened one, it sounded exactly like our RV screen door. So we kept jumping up thinking the cats got out. But overall, it was a quiet, beautiful base camp. Perfect for biking around the campground loops and being close to the lake for kayaking. There are even cabins to rent. And the fact that the dump station and potable water were just down the road made leaving the park really easy. Lassen was the park we almost skipped, but it turned out to be one of the biggest surprises of our trip. And if you want to see the hike that tested my fear of heights right before this stop, watch the Morro Rock video from Sequoia National Park. I'll see you over there.